Okay, so I've been trying to invite all the students that are really interested in that event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Celestine. I see you've joined us also. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
So, Melvin, I think Melvin has dropped off, or I was going to ask her to play that video for us. I do not know if she's ready for that.
I'm sorting it out, Samuel. I'm sorting it out now.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I really did love the video, and I would like to see it here again and again and again. So, welcome to everyone once again. We're a couple of minutes, just about 10 minutes or thereabouts from the start of this side event. We happens to be the first for the Planetary Health annual meeting for the year 2021. It's something we've been planning on for quite a while now. And I must start off with saying my most unreserved appreciation to everyone who, by all means possible, has done everything within their capacity to get us down to this place now. It's beautiful, to the facilitators, to the panelists, and even to the members who've been working behind the scenes, to the persons who have manned tech, the gadgets, the Zoom, and whatsoever. Many appreciations to you all, and to our distinguished audience from different parts of the world, more particularly from different parts of Africa. It's a pleasure to have you all here, and I trust and believe that today's program, this event, would be a glorious one. It would kickstart a series of connections and interconnections within the intellectual climb in Africa in such a way that we begin to understand the concepts and the importance of planetary health, eco health, one health, not just for the planet, but even more importantly, for we as human beings, because we can only stay alive and healthy as long as our planet is alive and healthy. And in line with what I'm talking about, we have that video. It's just about a couple minutes coming in. Uh, as soon as it's ready, I trust Melvin will be willing to share it. It shows the beauty of the African continent. I still strongly believe that the African continent is the mother of all continents, because when you go and begin to read into the prehistoric events of time, you would always see names like Egypt and Somalia and Libya and Ethiopia coming up in the archives of historians, predating some of the Eastern names we even have today. And so it's a pleasure to have you all here. Thank you very much and welcome once again. Just enjoy yourself, hang around. In a couple of minutes, we'll be starting this event. Thank you.
Samuel, can I start the video now?
Yes, you can. You can, Melvin.
Láti padà sílé mi, 'cause màmá mi wọ́n wà nílé mi. Funkilla. I go show you wonder what it wonderful. You no go believe wetin wan happen. No disturb us when the bed do wan catch you. Like it dey sleep, but this one Ido nyama jala kota
Hello, I'm Arya.
Thank you very much, Melvin, for that. Beautiful, beautiful. Nightingale, what would you say to that video? What picture does it paint to you when you see something like that?
Well, it's an amazingly beautiful picture, bringing out the connection between children, between, it's really an intergenerational and intercultural video that's also connecting the ancient, well, let's call it ancient because it's been there for a long time, and then the modern music. And yeah, which really brings us to our current times, showing how we just need to embrace all these together.
That's a beautiful take. Something that really catches my attention every time I see that video is the death of the flamingos. You know, it shows, and the flooding, it shows the impacts of, because I still strongly believe that it's our responsibility to keep everyone safe, both living and non-living in this world. And then when I see those flamingos dying as a result of our own actions or inactions, it shows that the ball still lies in our courts, and we need, by all means possible, to do things differently if we intend to keep the planet safe and habitable. And so that is just, by the way, welcome to those who have just joined us. I can see Raphael is here and Letitia. Pardon me if I do not pronounce your names correctly. And some of the names, I might not have the right pronunciation for them. But I also see Bonice, or is it Bonice, Karimi? You're welcome. If you can, kindly put on your cameras so we get to see the face of the person behind the name. So welcome, Raphael. And welcome, Bonice. Yeah, welcome to you. Isaac, welcome to you also. Welcome to everyone. Patrick, I see Patrick Bashizi. Welcome to you, Patrick. Oh, Protus's face finally pops up. Protus, it's nice seeing your face this afternoon. What's the weather looking like in Nottingham?
Thank you, Samuel.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. The weather is good today. A bit cold, yeah.
Well, it shouldn't stop you from going out for your jog later in the evening, would it?
Not really.
Okay, nice. I think one of these days I'll begin to koto you and follow your footsteps to regularly go out for evening jogs. It's becoming very necessary. Welcome to Omar once again. I think Omar, Dr. Mona already did make a brief introduction about you. She did introduce you, but I would say you were in absentia. You popped and then you went off. So welcome to you, Omar Yakub. It's a pleasure to have you here with us this afternoon. Okay, it seems he's also dropped off again. I hope he's not having network connections.
Yes, and
so welcome to everyone.
Sorry,
okay.
we have Abdurrahman Badri. We can welcome him. He's a senior student. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Mona.
Yeah, I'm proud to say that Abdulrahman even joined the in vivo conference with a very nice talk. So he has good experience, and his friend also, Yaqub. They all have been into the planetary health courses, so they have a very good experience to share with us.
Oh, thank you very much. I look forward to learning from all these men of intellect and ladies of brilliance that we have in the house today. Welcome to you, Manuela Vanat. I do not know if I called that correctly. I could only see a part of the second name, but the first name shows Manuela. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, welcome to you. Yeah, thank you. Without much ado, I would give the floor to Nightingale. I would like for you to give us a brief overview of ACOPPHE, how it all started, where it metamorphosed from, what was the vision behind or the dream behind this great move, how did it begin and all. Over to you, Nightingale.
Thank you very much, Samuel. And thank you everyone for being present in this event that is very important for us, both within Africa and without Africa. And just as I begin, as I get started, I would just like to very quickly invite about 5 people who can just say hello in your language, just for us to feel that diversity. So I'm just going to call a few names, and what we have on this screen is actually thanks to Dr. Mona. She put together the Africa map with the greetings. So I'm going to call a few names, and I'll start with Melvin just to say hello in your language.
Oh, thank you so much, Nightingale. To say it in my language is oh my God.
We can hear you.
To say it in my language is Oyaore, everyone. It is just hello, everyone. Oyaore.
Thank you, Melvin. Grace Namunyak, please just say your greeting.
Enter super porking.
Mona.
Yes, we have several things. Basically, we say Assalamu alaikum, marhaban, as you can see, very large here. Ahlan wa sahlan. What else, Hania? Can you help me? I can't remember anything else. Maybe these are the basic greetings that we use. Thank you.
Simon Pei.
Male.
Crispin Piri.
Bunch.
Thank you, everyone. So I just wanted to give us a very short taste of how united we are and yet how diverse we are. So, and this is also what we see with ACOPPHE, which is Africa community of planetary partners for health and environment. So whenever this group came together, so yes, you can see on the screen, it's Africa Community of Planetary Partners for Health and Environment. And our vision is looking at a healthy and sustainable Africa for all. And in short, we can call that HASA. I do know that because I can speak some of the Swahili language, HASA rings a bell in my head. Next slide, please. So our core problem is looking at unsustainability and anthropocentrism. And with the description of anthropocentrism being the idea that people are separate from and superior to other species and the natural world. And with the understanding that we are not going to survive, we're not going to be happy as humans if we continue with this idea. We have to live in more harmony with the natural world. our core values, we have 12 core values, and collaboration, diversity, equity and justice, humility, indigenous wisdom, integrity, peace, responsibility, tolerance, Ubuntu, which is it's a South African word. Undugu is a Swahili word, and it also means togetherness. Ujima is from the Kwanzaa, and it means collective work and responsibility. And then unity, which is also umoja in Swahili. So what we have done is, as much as possible, we've been trying to integrate other words, especially African words that are also recognized. And so, because we're trying to share this beauty from Mother Africa. So we have this as our website in the making. Like you see, it's under construction, but just be on the lookout, and within the next few days to a few weeks, it'll be up, and it'll be www.planetarypartners.org. So stay tuned. And if you're interested in connecting with us, or if you have any questions for us, even after this event, please do feel free to reach us out, reach out to us at ACOPPHE@gmail.com. And we will be in connection with you. And there is also a WhatsApp chat where you can chat with us. And so we are very excited to have a great panel, and we're very, very thankful to have all of you here. We look forward to have a great discussion with all of you and with our great panel that's about to come on. As you know, because of the times that we are in currently, we had to do a recording because, and also just knowing about the nature of how, especially the African continent is, that as much as we would have liked to do it live, the better thing would have been to record it to be sure that the connection does not disrupt the good information that we're looking forward to. And so what without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce the first speaker, who is Dr. Mona El-Sherbini. And Dr. Mona is based in the Medical and Molecular Parasitology Department at the Faculty of Medicine at Cairo University. She has a lot of experience with educating medical people, and she has been very involved in ACOPPHE and the construction of ACOPPHE. So I will invite you all now to please enjoy and learn and think about questions that you might have for our panelists.
Assalamu alaikum. It's a wonderful opportunity to participate in this open dialogue on uniting African and planetary communities to promote diverse partnership. On personal level, I've always been fascinated by the idea of searching of the root causes behind the causes, and all that underpins history of ideas. Having this scientific curiosity in mind with a strong core in humanities and molecular science allowed me to navigate into the epigenetic influence of environmental factors on the totality of health and well-being. From a demographic perspective, the African continent is indeed home for several neglected tropical diseases. As a researcher in this field, I would say that parasites from a biological perspective is a perfect example for symbiosis in the atlas of biodiverse species. They are beautifully adapted to their environment for millions of years, with several species and developmental stages, mighty tools and mechanisms to resist and survive and colonize in our bodies, giving us diseases difficult to treat. Africa, the old continent, with various biodiverse life forms living in harmony with the ecosystem, is echoed as a prism to examine symbiotic relationship across species and natural systems. While Africa experiences specific demographic, cultural, and ethnic characteristics, the multifaceted dimensions of ecological problems is aggravated by negative environmental impacts that are frequently triggered by advanced countries. Although the international joint initiatives have some form of representation in Africa, actions on how future should look are faint and often not carefully listened to with respect to the multi-ethnic, multicultural, multilingual social fabric with their indigenous practices, beliefs, and wisdoms. The constellation of all these factors results in lack of coherence to a shared vision with fragmentation of efforts. We live in a unique time of history, in a simultaneously accelerated global environmental change and technological advancement, in which our awareness of our roles as healthcare professionals requires a clear-eye appreciation for the deep entanglement of the human and natural worlds. As health of our planet worsens, human health is also endangered. It's fundamental to take meaningful steps and dwell on opportunities to expand the planetary health field into actionable recommendations and into current public health thinking needed to connect better with what people think and what people do in their households and in local communities. To promote health, we need a paradigm shift in the human-nature relationship, from abuse and neglect to respect and value and sustainability. We need to have a pro-planetary mindset with a holistic eye on the complexities, interconnectedness, and hotspots that need to be addressed for synergistic restoration of the human and planetary health. The future of planetary and public health research lies in the interdependence of systems, multi-sector representation, and necessary research capacity to spearhead the development of novel intervention appropriate for the planetary health climax today. In attempt to eventually systematize global health in the Anthropocene, the Global South needs to build in tandem a long-term social and ecological resilience that empowers a new roadmap to undo anthropogenic environmental damage and better health outcomes for a sustainable African continent for future generations to come. On behalf of my ambitious team, I'm inviting you to join a new cohort of intellectual exchange for health professions education, research, and mentorship to promote collaboration and enhance training in the interdisciplinary field of planetary health. Thank you very much. I would welcome any questions.
Thank you, Dr. for that presentation. That was a beautiful one. I will keep the questions until after we've had as much of the presentations as possible. Then we'll come back to take the questions. So just stay around. The questions will be coming in soon. And to the audience, please, as you listen to the presentations, begin to pen down your questions. You could send your questions into the chat section. We'll be putting our eyes there to look at the very important ones that we can touch down on. And if you're unable to answer your question here today, do not feel offended. We'll try as much as possible in the WhatsApp room to attend to all questions there. So let the questions keep coming in. I'll hand it over now to Nightingale to move us on for the next presentation.
Chanel, thank you for joining us. Chanel Mulapo is at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. She is a public health specialist and environmental psychologist with a background in applied behavioral science. So Chanel, without further ado, I will invite you please take the mic. And thanks for coming.
Thank you very much, Nightingale. Mulishani Wonse. My title of the title.
Chanel, thank you for joining us. Chanel Mulapo is at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. She is a public health specialist and environmental psychologist with a background in applied behavioral science. So Chanel, without further ado, I will invite you. Please take the mic, and thanks for coming.
Thank you very much, Nightingale. Mulishani Wonse. My title of the title of my presentation is Water, Sanitation and Hygiene Implications for Health. The background to this is that I was born in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the time when I was about 4 or 5 years, there was a civil unrest. And with that caused a lot of people to be displaced. And unfortunately, a lot of people that moved from the people that were mostly affected were the people that were living on the periphery of the town. And then they were displaced and moved into the inner town, and they just lived like on the roads and everywhere. So due to that unrest, my father invited some of the people to come and live with us. And unfortunately, because everyone was just staying everywhere, they didn't have access to water and sanitation, and there was a breakout of dysentery. Unfortunately, that led to a lot of children dying during that time. And that image stuck with me. I was one of the few children, me and my brother, that also got infected, but we had access to healthcare. But a lot of children died, and that image really stuck with me. So a few years down the line, when I was pursuing my master's degree, I came across a topic on water, sanitation, and hygiene, and that image just came back to me when I saw the statistics of children that die from wash-related diseases. So I dedicated my time to focus and contribute to improving WASH in Africa, and ultimately improve the health of children in sub-Saharan Africa. So just to give a background of the status of WASH, one of the gaps actually is the fact that there's limited data when it comes to actually knowing exactly what is the status of water and sanitation in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa. So I'm working on the statistics, on global statistics, but with these global statistics that actually stand at 4.2 billion people have lack a safely managed sanitation, and 2.2 billion people lack safely managed drinking water, and 3 billion people do not have access to at home to a hand washing facility with soap or water. So these are global statistics. However, the regions that are mostly affected by poor access or lack of access to safely managed sanitation, water and hygiene are sub-Saharan Africa. So sub-Saharan Africa is the region, or one of the regions, that are mostly affected by this. So some of the gaps and barriers that are limiting progress are climate change. With the climate change, we are having emergencies and situations like floods and droughts that are also making this situation difficult. For instance, with the floods, we find that areas where there's limited access to sanitation, when that happens, species are exposed to the environment and people get into contact with these pathogens. And sometimes when they don't also, the most affected areas, you find that people also don't have limited access to water. So you find that with the floods, species also end up contaminating their drinking water. At the end of the day, we find that we're finding ourselves in a situation where the climate change is also contributing to the increase in wash-related diseases. And another challenge that I just mentioned is the lack of data when it comes to Africa, and understanding what exactly is going on with access to water and sanitation by country as well. So opportunities to overcome challenges. As an environmental psychologist, I see the opportunities in investing in people. One ways we can do that is to look at values. You know, values are general goals where people strive for in life, and also they they transcend specific situations and are relatively stable over time and affect a wide range of beliefs and behaviors. So it's very critical for us to understand the values that people have, and also to make sure we instill values in people that are pro-environment or environmentally friendly. So when we look at the values, there's 4 values that have actually been identified that are relevant in terms of promoting or that influence environment. And these are biospheric values, altruistic values, egoistic values, and hedonic values. And the ones that are critical in terms of promoting pro-environmental behavior are biospheric values. This is a concern for the environment. So this is the value that we need to target and to promote in people, and to also measure and see people have that. And another important value for pro-environmental behavior is a concern for others. So that is altruistic values. So if people have biospheric values and altruistic values, then they'll be pro-environmental. Their behaviors and beliefs towards the environment will be good. And we need to make sure that we don't have a lot of people or most people with values of egoistic or hedonic. So possible collaborations to ensure that we have like a sustainable environment is to ensure that we engage with the communities when it comes to improving WASH. Like we have to work with them. An example of doing that is using community-led interventions, such as community-led total sanitation interventions, which have been used lately. And also we need multi-sector collaborations and promoting a circular economy, so that nothing goes to waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Chanel. And just feel free to jot in any questions that you might have in chat. We're going to give as many opportunities as we can to questions, and any questions that remain unanswered, we will reach out to you. So if you have a question and you'd like us to reach out to you, also feel free to even inbox Samuel, Mona, Melvin, and myself. Thank you. Feel free to share the questions. Thank you so much, Chanel. Sorry, my connection. Thank you so much, Chanel. And we will have some questions for you later. So I will go ahead and invite Crispin Ferry from South Africa. So Crispin is an ecologist who is currently a senior lecturer at the Freshwater and Fisheries Science Department at Chinhoyi University of Technology, who is interested in biodiversity conservation, maintaining of aquatic ecosystem health, and enhancing food security through strengthening of fisheries and aquaculture sectors. So, Mr. Firi, karibu sana. You're most welcome. You are on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Hey, thank you very much, Nightingale. Yeah, my name is Crispin Piri. I am not from South Africa, but from Zimbabwe. And I am an aquatic ecologist and with other varied interests. My topic today is African biodiversity, status, threats, and implications for health. Yeah, Africa is quite a big continent. It's quite a young continent, actually, with a population of about 1.37 billion people. Quite a high population growth rate, about 2.5%. And it's projected that by 2050, it's going to have a population of approximately 2.8 billion. That's more than a double what the population is today. And currently, 57% of that population is rural. People live in rural areas. Nearly 60% But also urbanization in Africa is actually quite high. The urbanization rate, and by 2050, about 1.5 billion people will be urban dwellers, that is in Africa. Essentially, though, the large proportion of the population in Africa depend directly on biodiversity, particularly those people in rural areas. They really depend on extracting their livelihoods and their food and everything, that mostly from natural resources, the biodiversity that they live around. And so biodiversity is socially, culturally, and economically important in Africa, for many countries in Africa. So it is a critical asset for sustainable development and attainment of the sustainable development goals. Yeah, but what is the state of that biodiversity? That is what is very concerning for most people in Africa. We have got here in Africa an extremely biodiversity-rich continent, and which includes the most intact assemblage of large mammals on Earth. We've got those large roaming heads of wildebeest that most people are familiar with in the Serengeti in Eastern Africa. And we have about 20% of all known species of mammals, birds, and plants in the world. However, species abundances are declining, and threats to species and ecosystems are increasing. Over 3,100 plants and 6,400 animals in Africa are threatened with extinction. 21% of freshwater species in Africa are also threatened with extinctions. And since 1970, combined population of African vertebrate species have decreased by approximately 39%. And between 2010 and 2030, Africa lost 3.9 million hectares of forest area per year. So if you multiply that by about 10 or so years ago, they're going to get a figure of about 390 million hectares. And that compared to the period between 2000 and 2010, which was 3.4 million hectares, which were lost between 2000 and 2010. So periodically, I mean, the 10-year periods from 1990, Africa has gradually lost more and more of its forest area. So the biodiversity status is quite concerning on the continent. The threats, there are a number of threats. Habitat loss is one of them. Overharvesting is one of them. Invasive species and the diseases that come from the invasive species. Pollution and climate change. Those are some of the major threats that are affecting Africa's wildlife. And habitat loss and degradation, largely through agricultural expansion, is the most important threat to Africa's biodiversity. When expanding population, there is need to grow food. So our agriculture has to expand. The current way we're doing agriculture requires more and more land, and that is a problem for biodiversity. Overexploitation and degradation of ecosystems is one of the threats, and will result in loss of about 50% of Africa's birds and mammal species in the next few decades. And climate change, the new threat, recent threat, is projected to be one of the most worst drivers of biodiversity loss over the next 50 to 100 years, and will further exacerbate the effects of the other threats. So we have a challenge of largely habitat loss at the moment, overharvesting, which includes poaching and illegal harvesting of resources. And if you see, like for our mammals, a good number of them, nearly 90%, are actually affected by habitat loss. Birds, about 80 to 90% are affected by habitat loss. Bony fishes, more than 50%, mollusks, just below 50%. So we have got a serious challenge, and climate change is upcoming in terms of its effect on biodiversity in Africa. Now, what are the implications of all these challenges? The implications have got to do with things like our food and nutrition. Sort of the implications that we're going to have. Africa is faced with a triple burden of malnutrition, undernutrition, and overnutrition, obesity, overnourishment. And that is because through the decades, the last 100 or so years, there's been a shift to industrial diets characterized by high intake of fat, sugar, salts, and animal-sourced foods. Yeah, and it is estimated that in sub-Saharan Africa, nearly 87% of its domesticated crops are from other regions. What has happened, basically, there's been a shift from indigenous foods that were used to these domesticated foods from other regions. But actually, domestication, cultivation, development of indigenous biodiversity can help alleviate malnutrition on the continent. Unfortunately, most of the domestic indigenous biodiversity in terms of crops as well as animals is also being lost through the threats that we are facing here in Africa. Another implication is on our medicines. Most of our medicines, especially as I mentioned, most of the people live in rural areas in Africa. They actually use traditional medicines. They use medicinal plants, but unfortunately, there's a heavy loss of most of those plants. If you look at the diagram on the right, on your right to that to this slide, you see that Africa has got the most threatened medicinal plants, threatened with extinction, because it's the continent that uses a lot of these medicinal plants. So there's overuse, overexploitation, and sometimes even illegal extraction of medicinal plants leading to loss, which is also another serious challenge and serious implications for the health of the populations in Africa. Then there's the aspect of disease outbreaks. Approximately 2/3 of non-human infectious diseases are shared with animals, and the majority of recently emerging diseases are associated with wildlife. Yeah. So there's a close link between emerging infectious disease spillover to humans, and deforestation and biodiversity loss. We're losing quite a lot of our forest. We're losing quite a lot of our biodiversity, and the risk to infection now, because once we lose things like our forest, the interactions, a number of animals now tend to move and interact more with people. And then the risk to humans of infection by disease such as West Nile virus, a virus that is spread by mosquitoes and causes substantial sickness and death in several animals, then increases. It has been shown that where there are lots of other vertebrate animals, West Nile virus is strongly reduced among people. Yeah. And then deforestation is linked to about 31% of outbreaks such as Ebola and the Zika virus. So there is a challenge. The loss of biodiversity will have profound impacts on human health, and it is critical to enhance support of the initiatives towards conservation of biodiversity and ecosystems. There are lots of initiatives throughout Africa, throughout the world, and throughout countries in Africa, which are targeted towards biodiversity conservation, and there is need to make sure that those are strengthened and enhanced so that we enhance human health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Crispin. And we really appreciate the conversation. So I will go ahead and just like with Chanel, we will have questions for you later. But for now, I will hand the mic over to Melvin.
Thank you so much, Nightingale and the other speakers that I've just presented. I want to welcome you, Raphael Kimosop, who is an indigenous person from the Endorois community here in Kenya, and also a member of Endorois Welfare Council. His council is currently working for the county government of Baringo as the county catchment and wetland protection officer, and is also an education officer in the Lake Bogoria National Reserve. So his topic of discussion will be the effects of climate change in relation to Lake Bogoria and its indigenous communities. I welcome you, Raphael, to share your experiences and your views on that topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Melvin. Thank you, everyone. Mine is on indigenous community, as Melvin has introduced me. Yeah, Lake Bogoria is a national reserve which is in which is in Baringo, and the indigenous people known as Endorois as the subtribe of Kalenjins, which are living basically within Lake Bogoria and its environments. This community are majorly pastoralists, and they rely entirely on pastoral and keeping of livestock, and then generally both livestock and poultry a little bit. So Lake Bogoria, this community has some cultural attachment with Lake Bogoria National Reserve. As for one, they get revenue from Lake Bogoria. Whichever revenue which is accrued from Lake Bogoria, when visitors come, they get 10% from the accruals from revenue collected from Lake Bogoria. Baringo County, as a government, involves the community, the indigenous community, in all its management processes of the National Reserve. For one, we involved the community in management formulation of the management plan of Lake Bogoria National Reserve. And also we've just formed something known as biocultural protocol for the community, so that we can get attachment, the cultural attachment of Lake Bogoria with the people's way of life. We also have in Lake Bogoria as a common information center where this is a repository of all our information and cultural and artifacts and relics which are being kept in this information center together with the information of Lake Bogoria National Reserve. Lake Bogoria, courtesy of the indigenous community, has been given a dossier by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site and a very an important biodiversity area where respect to this and the culture of the people. What are the indicators of climate change in Lake Bogoria? One is in the whole Rift Valley lakes, we have a water rise. There has been a water rise from 2011 up to date, and the water has been rising up. This is an indicator of climate change. We also have change in water chemistry. Lake Bogoria is a saline water lake, but now the chemistry of the lake is tending to be fresh. So that has also affected us as a community, because the springs which were around the lake were all submerged underwater. So now the otherwise sources of fresh water is now underwater and submerged under this rising water level. And now people, women and children are going far places in search of water. This also has hindered their time for domestic work, and also distances. These distances are also preventing them from doing other activities, domestic activities. Also, there has been an emergence of other biodiversity. The ecological and composition of the lake, the reserve has changed. Now that the water is tending to be fresh, now we are getting fresh water and animals coming to Lake Bogoria. So we have otherwise crocodiles, hippos, and other aquatic animals, which has also brought in what we call human-wildlife conflict. We have also an emergence of an invasive species. We have what we call Prosopis juliflora. Prosopis juliflora is a plant which has come to this lake and has invaded and colonized all the indigenous and trees, the indigenous vegetation which the community has been using as herbal medicine among fodder group and among other uses. What is also asked to be mentioned is that there has emerged some tropical diseases, zoonotic diseases between the diseases which are got between livestock and wildlife. So we have, of late, we have our poultry dying because of flamingos. You know, Lake Bogoria is known to be a home and a restaurant to lesser flamingos. And now flamingos are dying, and the same death is being felt by the people in the local community. So our poultry are dying courtesy of the deaths of these flamingos. We also have foot and mouth diseases, which our wildlife has foot and mouth disease, and they spread to our livestock, or the vice versa. We also have unpredicted weather rainfall patterns. There has been effects of rainfall patterns, and we are receiving rainfalls at different stages of the year. So we are not receiving rainfall normally. The rainfalls are now erratic. We need to also have what we call pollution. The entire catchment of Lake Bogoria is so big, and now the people up the upper catchment are farmers, so they normally do farming and spray their crops, and all agrochemicals are driven to Lake Bogoria through the runoffs to Lake Bogoria. So this also has caused an healthy hazard to our livestock and other domestic uses. We need to also to mention that since then, the livelihood, the economy of the people, the Indorese community has gone down because the visitors has gone down because of a lack of attractions in the lake, and the economy, the 10% which I mentioned earlier, is no more. So now the livelihood of the community is very much affected negatively by the climate change. So our people are now striving very hard to meet today the requirements of their life, of their economy. In conclusion, we need to at least incorporate and include and do what we call sustainable use of social, cultural, economic, and ecological components, and mine them together and come up with a pyramid which has a sustainability complex in it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Kimosop, for sharing the health challenges of the indigenous communities in Bogoria, and also what the wildlife and the domestic animals are facing as a result of climate change. We'll come back to you with some questions later. And I would like to welcome the next speaker, who is Grace Namunyak. She's a founder and the president of Namunyak Foundation, an organization that works in the remote areas of Masai Mara in Kenya with women and girls from indigenous community. And it rescues young Masai girls from female genital mutilation and early forced marriages. And she's also a teacher by profession and a member of Rotary Club of Enkare Narok County here in Kenya. So she will talk more about the challenges the women and girls are facing as a result of issues to do with challenges on education aspect. I welcome you, Grace.
Thank you very much. And Tasuba Fokin, that is greeting in Maasai language. I come from the Maasai community. I'm a Maasai. I've been brought up and I grew up in this community, and I have gone through challenges in having education. As a girl of my age or a woman of my age, when I was growing up, it was a very big challenge for us to go to school. I can assure you that I am the only girl that went to school in my village when I joined school. To go just a little bit about my past or my growing up, I am the firstborn of 8, and my father had one wife. Although in our culture, our community, men marry many wives. So when I was growing up, I used to take care of sheep and cattle. My brother, who is following me from behind, reached an age where he could join school, but he could not go to school because he had no one to take him to school because the school was very far from home. So I was taken to school to join school because to support my brother or even to escort him to school until he was able to go to school alone without help. So I joined school by mistake, or luckily I went to school because my brother could not go to school alone. So when I went to school, I was taken to first grade and he was taken to the kindergarten, which we call nursery school in Kenya. My first year was so good, and my second year was so good. So when the time my brother was able to go to school on his own, my father saw maybe I could drop out of school and go back to take care of the sheep. But my teacher was so close to me that he knew that I was about to drop out of school because my brother was able to go to school. So he talked to my dad, and I went back to school, and I continued with my education. Fast forward, when I finished school, I joined teaching, not because I wanted to be a teacher, but because it's the only profession that was available that my parents knew by then. But I'm happy that I joined teaching because I went back to a profession which takes you closer to kids and takes you back to the society and brings you back to how you were brought. So I am going to talk about education, the challenges girls and mostly girls go through in my community. Being a marginalized community, or a community that comes from the sub-Saharan part of Kenya, there are so many challenges that girls go through. And also, when the biggest challenge is that the level of literacy in my community is very low. Most of the parents and most of the adults are illiterate, and they don't see the need of taking their girls or kids to school. Secondly, where most of our elderly men or our fathers saw women or girls as a way of gaining property or being rich. So a girl was brought up so that she can be sold or married off for the family to get more cows and become rich. Another challenge is the family size. Being polygamous families, they saw when a family had when a man had many wives and had many girls, he saw it as a loss to take a girl to school, and then that girl ends up being married to another man. So they saw it as a loss. So they only educated boys and left the girls, because the girl was going to be married off and become someone else's property. There was the accessibility of school. There is also accessibility of school. Being an area where there is very low, there's no roads and it's so remote. Most schools are very far, and when some schools are not accessible because of wildlife. So boys in my culture are brave, and they take them to be brave. So when they want to go to school, when they are the age they want to go to school, their parents believe that they can go through the forest and go to school because they are boys. So the girls, because they take them as weak, they are kept at home and delayed, making it hard for them to join school later. Cultural practices. There are cultural practices that are in my community, in my cultural community, that limit girls to go to school. As you had already been informed, there are practices like genital mutilation, which make parents not to take girls to school because they will go through the practice, the rite of passage, and as soon as they go through the rite of passage, they are considered to be women and ready to be married. So most of the girls do not go to school because they are considered brides of women, wives to be, and after they go through the card, they are married off. There is also forced early marriage, whereby in my community, girls are booked, like you book a girl when she's still very young, and that makes her a bride until she is the age of going to school. So these are some of the things that I saw and started the organization that I run to help girls to know their rights. I'll create awareness. I started doing it in school when I was still a teacher, and even after I left teaching, I made it a habit to show girls that it is their right to go to school, and to show parents that there is no difference between a girl and a boy, and they deserve the same treatment when it comes to education. When I talk about FGM, forced marriage, and there is also some trend that has come whereby these girls are exposed to, they are vulnerable, that they are exposed to men back in the village. For example, when COVID hit the last year, most of the schools were closed, and when they were closed, these girls went back to the village to stay with their parents. Now that they had left, for example, the ones that are rescued, that they are taken out of their homes, they go back to the village. They live in the same environment with the people that he had run away from, and now when they are there, they are exposed. Like the parents don't take care of them. The parents don't want to know whether they are safe or not. So the men, they are open to any person who comes to them. And maybe these people are the people that had booked them early. So they become pregnant. So early teenage pregnancy is the biggest thing now. these girls are getting pregnant. And because of not being in school, especially when there was COVID, most girls got pregnant, and immediately she gets pregnant, she is married off. Some of the efforts that the government and NGOs and government organizations are doing are creating awareness to the community that it is good for girls to go to school, because they also contribute the same as boys contribute in the society. There was also illegalizing of female genital mutilation and early forced marriages, whereby if a person is found forced a girl to go through female genital mutilation, they are arrested and arraigned in court, and sometimes they are even jailed forever. There are sponsors and people like my organization and so many others who are bringing that chance for the girls to go to school by providing sponsorship for them to be in school, making sure that you create a good environment for them to be in school. The government has also passed laws that making people to know that it's illegal to not allow a girl to go to school. So with that few remarks, I'm grateful to share what I do and what I purpose to do in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace, for highlighting your personal story and also sharing about your community's cultural practices that hinder education among girls. I must say that you are a strong and phenomenal woman, and thank you for helping and encouraging girls to pursue education in order to venture into career development aspect. So I will also ask a question later. So for now, I'll have to hand it over to my fellow facilitator, Samuel. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice having you here. It's been a beautiful time so far. We finally coming to the climax of this, the sessions we're having with the panelists. We have just 2 more panelists to go. I'll be inviting the first on the list. His name is Iyola Oladunjoye. He's a Nigerian, and he's a microbiologist by first degree, but he's a planetary health, in all the aspects of planetary health. He's a planetary health enthusiast. I welcome Iyola Oladunjoye.
Thank you, Samuel, for the introduction. I am Iyola Oladunjoye, an environmental microbiologist from Nigeria, and also an advocate of One Health and Planetary Health. Today, I'll be discussing the roles of African youth in contributing to a sustainable and healthy planet. As a microbiology student, I realized the importance of youth engaging in community development projects and also integrating with the community to promote a sustainable and healthy planet. And this started during my first experience as a microbiology student in medical diagnostic services. Being a reference center for tuberculosis, I realized that there's a high burden of tuberculosis here in Nigeria, and most of these are gotten from animals. And these diseases are usually difficult to be cured because they are mostly resistant to conventional antibiotics. Afterwards, I had my second internship experience at a veterinary teaching hospital, where I further learned about antimicrobial resistance and also discovered that it is not just a human health problem, but also occurs in animal. Learning this, I started thinking of how these problems, most especially infectious disease, are interconnected between humans and animals. And then I went further to reading about this, and I realized that most global public health issues, including infectious disease, antimicrobial resistance, and zoonosis, are the interface of environmental, human, and animal health. And I'm still realizing this as an environmental microbiologist in my current working place. And in order to address these issues, I realized the importance of stepping beyond academic discourse to community awareness and engagement. And as a result of that, I championed community awareness projects that are tailored towards letting the community realize the importance of global public health issues and also how they can, contribute towards the solution. And I realized that the youth are the spectrum of making this possible, because in Africa, almost 60% of African population are youths under the age of 25. So I engaged in mobilizing youths in order to communicate these problems and challenges to the community, and also, strategies at which they can be integrated in providing solutions to these challenges. However, I realized that there are some common problems about making this happen in the community, of which the first one is a lack of understanding about the cultural values in rural communities and indigenous culture. Most youths are, have stepped beyond their culture into gaining more enlightenment and more Western education, that they are currently losing the importance of their cultural heritage and also their languages. They can't connect so well with their indigenous languages, indigenous language anymore, and it affects how they relate with their community people, and also tell them about what they are currently learning academically and how it relates to providing solutions in their community. Also, I understand that there's an insufficient translation of knowledge to action. So most youths just engage, they just consume a whole lot of information. They know the problems, but they really can't provide solution in the context of their community. So in order to address this, I think these are possible solutions that youth can adopt. So the first one is promoting traditional values that will aid sustainable development and healthy planets. So the first thing that the youth should recognize is the importance of their own cultural heritage, and also understanding their languages properly in order to communicate issues such as climate change, infectious disease outbreaks, and also other global public health problems that we are currently faced with in their community. And this can be achieved through learning more about their cultural heritage and also learning their languages, which is key towards integrating into the community. And also, one other thing that youth can also use to reach out to their communities, organizing community development projects and initiatives. So in Nigeria, there's a National Youth Service Corps, in which is mandatory for all graduates. And this happens, by mobilizing youths from their region of study and their hometown to a different, region in the country, where they have the ability to learn the culture of this region and also absorb their ideas. And they also have the opportunities to engage in community development projects, whereby they identify a particular challenge, in their community. Maybe it's a waste challenge or challenges with pollution, and they provide solutions to this. So this is a very good initiative at which youths can, think of the existing challenges that happen in their residence or their community and come together, collaborate together to provide solutions in a way that it will be acceptable by the community. And also, there should be a societal and cultural awareness. That is, the youth should understand, the current community challenges and problems, and also use their education in ways that they can use to, promote positive development and solve these particular problems that they are currently faced with. Lastly, I believe that, Africa being a young population has a lot of prospects in contributing to sustainable and healthy planets, and the youth are the spectrum of, engaging with communities, the rural communities and indigenous people, and it would be great for the youth to start actively thinking of solutions towards solving these global public health issues we are faced with. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Mr. Olatunjoye. It was a pleasure to have you, and trust me, we have very important and interesting questions coming for you. You talked about antimicrobial resistance, you talked about infectious diseases, and it's general knowledge that Africa happens to be the center of the highest burden of infectious diseases. I trust that the viewers at home and even those of us who are here with you as facilitators have a few questions, but I'll be coming after the last presenter. And with that, I call on the last presenter for this session. We have with us in the house Mr. Protus. He's by name in full Protus. I'll call him Protus because his surname seems to be quite difficult for me to call. If I call it right, it will be Protus Yabunga. I hope I called that correctly. He is currently having his master's program in public health at the University of Nottingham. He's African by heritage and from Kenya. I pass on the mic to Mr. Protus.
Thank you, Samuel. So today I'm going to talk about three multidisciplinary concepts: One Health, Planetary Health, and Eco Health. And specifically, I'll be focusing on opportunities from these concepts that Africa can tap on. So at the human-animal and environmental interface, we have three holistic and multidisciplinary concepts. I know most of you have heard about it, and that's one of it is the reason we are here: planetary health. We also have eco health and One Health. So these approaches or these concepts are being adopted at a higher rate currently by many non-governmental organizations, especially in research sector in Africa. So just to define them, One Health has been defined as a collaborative effort of multiple professionals and institutions which are working nationally, globally, to attain optimal health for both humans, animals, and the environment. So if you look closely at this concept, you realize that it is somehow, while it is wide, they are trying to, there's efforts to make it more inclusive and include issues to do with biodiversity and social sciences. Then the other concept is eco-health, and it has been described to involve human, animal, and ecosystem, and it has a strong focus about biodiversity and sustainability. It is touted to be the most inclusive of all these concepts, and it includes anthropologists, social scientists, and more importantly, it appreciates the local knowledge. Then the other concept is planetary health, and it focuses more on the human health impacts of human caused disruptions on Earth's natural system. So it takes an anthropocentric approach with more focus on human health outcomes. So if you look at these three concepts, how are they related? You realize that all of them are related in that they are multidisciplinary, and you realize that they focus on three things: human health, animal health, and the ecosystem. And they place human health and environmental well-being at their center. But however, there is a missing link, especially in Africa, in that you realize that we don't have that political goodwill to adopt these concepts, but we can't blame the governments alone, because you realize that in these concepts, different organizations promoting them are like in competition rather than collaboration. And also we have a problem of funding. For example, in Africa, if you look at most of these institutions promoting these concepts are foreign funded with no or little local funding. Then also another challenge, you realize that they are more being applied in research, but this research is not being translated into policies or solutions that can be appreciated by policymakers to make them appealing, for them to be inculcated in the practice. So what can we do? We need, as Africa's local-led and local resource institutions, to be able to bring or make use of these multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary concepts to work collaboratively with each other, integrating the different perspectives from these three concepts. Then we also need a shift from the top-down approach to down-up approach that is inclusive of the local community. And this is what ACOPPHE is more focusing on, to bridge the divide between these three concepts and ensure, while we know that there are three distinct promoting different things, but at least there can be collaboration, so to ensure that the benefits that accrue from all of them can be of benefit and can impact the local communities at the grassroots level. Thank you.
So thank you so much to our panelists for such great conversation, such great presentations that have raised so many questions for all of us. So because of time, I will like to go straight to the question and answer session. And I urge you to please share your questions. And I will also request Melvin and Samuel to man the hand raising in case somebody raises your hand to ask a question. Don't be shy. It's really for us, it's for you, it's for our environment, and it's for our youth as well. So please feel comfortable. I will start off by asking Dr. Mona a question, and we are right now going to ask one question per panelist, and we will also be looking to see if you have any questions. So please feel free to do that. So Dr. Mona, I have a quick question based on your presentation today. For the planetary health course that you are offering at your medical university, what is your goal and hope for how your students use this knowledge? And what change do you hope to see due to this educational exposure? And if you have any tips on for other professors out there who may want to do this or collaborate with you, please feel free to share.
Thank you so much, Nightingale, for your important question. I would say that usually the medical curriculum in any medical school involve solid science, and the way medical students have to think is usually for exams and grades and to collect marks. So it's really important to highlight the holistic eye towards the health issues, diseases, and focusing more on how environmental influence can really cause a disease and affect our physical and mental well-being. So the holistic approach to health and well-being is really important to be in an extracurricular elective or activity to engage students and to bring them more to a more practical standpoint where they can apply their healthcare practice afterwards with the patients. Also, my capacity as a lecturer of medical parasitology, usually the part involving a life cycle of parasites is deficient in highlighting how the anthropocentric influence of human behavior affect his contracting the infection from the first place. So this is also important that during teaching basic medical science, we should focus on how human behavior affects our health and disease. So I hope that with this I did answer all your questions. And let me know if you need more clarification in any part. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. If you have any more questions for Dr. Mona specifically, please add them into chat and we might find time to come around for them to them.
Thank you very much, Nightingale, and thank you, Dr. Mona, for that answer. I would also like to ask a question to Mr. Yola from Nigeria. His presentation revolved around antimicrobial resistance and some of the problems of infectious diseases and the loss of the cultural heritage in Africa. And so my question would be, Africa is besieged. Yes, we know Africa is besieged by antimicrobial resistance and such cases, climate change, increasing cases of non-communicable diseases, even as the burden of infectious disease has not yet been very much reduced to a bearable minimum. And so Africa is beginning to enter that stage where we might have a double burden of both communicable and non-communicable diseases. The people who would feel the brunt of all these challenges most often than not are the youths, the people of the younger generation. And so my question is, how do you think youth can be involved in this change that you are trying to create from Nigeria there? How do you think other youths in Africa can actually be involved in stemming the tide of antimicrobial resistance, heritage loss, and such challenges as are very much affecting us in Africa?
Thank you so much for the question. So the ways that youth can be involved in tackling the global public health issues we are currently faced with in Africa is through advocacy and research. So I would mention the advocacy aspect. So the youth should be involved since, Africa is such a young population and that we have a majority of the African population being youths. So they should be involved in creating general awareness about these issues we are currently faced with, and also influencing behavioral changes in the community, in their own respective communities. So just like I mentioned in my presentation, this should go beyond academic learning to more of community engagement and community participation. So the youth should, find ways to reach out to their community, to be aware about these challenges, the specific behaviors that leads to these problems. For example, antimicrobial resistance is as a result of misuse and overuse of antibiotics or antimicrobials in livestock production in humans. And they should be involved in telling their community people that, stop using antibiotics this way, don't use antibiotics without prescription. And they should find ways, in which they can communicate that in a relatable manner, such that they can influence behavioral changes in their community. And also, Africa still has a long way to go in terms of research, biomedical research, in ensuring that, we tackle these challenges ourselves. For example, antimicrobial resistance, we can be able to join the global force in finding antibiotics that can function well, and other technologies that we can use to find solutions to problems such as antimicrobial resistance and other global public health challenges we are currently faced with. Thank you. I hope I'm able to put in some perspective into that.
Yeah, thank you very much for your answers. Thank you very much. Well noted. I hope others in Africa, especially the youths and more of the adults, can also follow in the footsteps of people like Dr. Mona to bring more youth into the change, the sphere of change that is going around, and so that we can, from the grassroots, begin to tackle some of the problems that we're facing in Africa. Over to you, Melvin.
Thank you so much. My question goes to Grace Namunyak. As you all know, that the girl child definitely holds a strong position in planetary stewardship. So how do Africa, especially the indigenous community, based on your example, how can we empower girl child to join the fight against environmental biodegradation? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melvin. And that's a very nice question. And I think, according to me, most of the information is out there, but the girls and the women do not have access to the information. So the best way the planetary health community and initiative can do is by creating awareness, by having more conversation with the community, getting in touch with them, and also creating time to educate the women and girls in schools and in villages about the importance of education. I hope I have answered your question, Melvin.
Yes, you've answered it correctly. Nightingale, can you go on?
Thank you. So I would like to ask a quick question to Mr. Piri. And this question is mainly, how do you see the integration of children in the question of biodiversity? How can the youth and even especially children, who we have more and more of them, be involved in this question and looking at that the future really belongs to them?
Thanks, Nightingale, for that question. Children, basically, I think should be involved right from the earliest stages of their life, especially if you talk about African children, from when they start young all the way through school. I'm gonna, let's say, make a point, for example, let's look at biodiversity, the way it is looked at in the context of most of us in Africa, in the urban areas, for example. Many children in the urban areas in Africa really don't know much about wildlife. They don't know much about indigenous life and traditional life, because they are divorced from the rural areas in many cases. And then when it comes to biodiversity, it also goes through to them. To them, biodiversity either seen on TV or in the book, and the life is not related to biodiversity. So through schooling in schools must have programs that allow children to be able to relate and link up with biodiversity. Schools should have trips where they go and see life outside their immediate environment, so that they see the diversity of life. And then when it comes to issues of, let's say, traditional foods, and which we are losing, they should also be introduced at a young stage. If you look, for example, to our media, go through Africa, media, TV or radio, the talk on indigenous and traditional foods, you rarely see an advert with regards to indigenous and traditional foods, but you see adverts of all these other, let's so-called modern foods. And I mean, many African parents struggle to ask a child to eat a traditional food simply because it is uncool. Yeah, it is, and for lack of a better, it is uncool to eat a traditional food, but it's very cool to eat something that you see on TV being advertised day in, day out. So that is where we start, from the home through to school, and by the time they reach adult age, they'll appreciate biodiversity as well as the threats that we are encountering at this stage. I hope I've answered the question. It's a discussion that should go on throughout Africa, and I think throughout the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Crispin. I will hand it over now to Melvin or Samuel.
Okay, another question goes to Raphael Kimosop. Also, Grace Namnya can answer this question. How do communities around a water scarce area use the limited water resources around their vicinity? Now that you come from Lake Bogoria region, and also Namnya comes from Masai Mara, where it is a dry area. So kindly answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and Melvin. Baringo is a water scarce county, and indeed there is a minimal water. If any water source is saline water sources, and we've just tried to have boreholes being sunk, and every time you sink a borehole, you get saline water, or rather, if not saline, then it is hot water. So it comes as hot springs. So the county government, in liaison with the community, have done an holistic kind of an approach of getting water from other sources, from far places, using water bowsers. And the community are being given water, the community are encouraged to buy storage tanks, so that when the booster comes, then it bores the water into these existing borehole and water tanks within the homestays. However, we also have schools and other institutions, public institutions, that the county government, together with other partners, have made an effort of buying some water tanks, 5,000 liters, 10,000 liters, that if in our schools, then the bosses come, then boil the water into this. And we also teach our people during community barasas and school outreach programs on the essence of utilizing the little water we do have. So in as much as we want to have this water used, then we have to have a sustainability kind of utility, so that everybody gets the water within the minimal water, and everybody gets it in a very minimal way and uses it in a very minimal, maximizing the little water they have. Thank you so much.
To add on what Raphael has said, as you all know, or have seen in the video that was taken in the Manyata, most of the homes are mud. The roofs are made of mud. So people are creating awareness, and people are being encouraged to make some houses with roofs of iron sheet so that they can collect rainwater from. The other way that people are getting water from my area is by having drilled water. So many organizations and so many individuals are coming to help the community get water that is drilled or borehole water. Although some of the areas have saline water, which is sometimes not very good for human consumption. In other places, there are organizations that create roofs to collect water for the community, like in one homestead, the Masai Manyata, they can have a roof that they collect water, collect it into tanks, and the community can use the water from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We also have some questions from the chat box to you, Grace. One person has just asked here that, did men accept your community that women are no longer their possession, but they can be their partner? Can you answer that?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Christine, for the question. Things are changing slowly by slowly. It's not as it was back 10, 20 years ago. Most of the women are now have gone to school, and most of the girls are also knowing their rights. So things are changing slowly by slowly, although not as fast as we would want them to go, but things are changing.
Thank you so much for your question. I think Nightingale can also go on with some few questions here and there.
Sorry. Before Nightingale, I also have two questions from the chat. One, asking what the role of the county government and the national government in the rising water in the Rift Valley lakes. This one, the county government is very much cognizant of the water rise. And together with other partners like the Water Resource Authority, National Environmental Management Authority, Kenya Wildlife Service, all of them have come up with a concerted effort towards investigating what could be the causal effect of this water rise. And some of the researchers from Water Resource Authority and Kenya Wildlife Service have been coming to Lake Bogoria to ascertain really what could be the trend at which the water is increasing, and also putting some lake gauging systems so that they can monitor the extent at which the water is rising. Moreover, we also have some people among our partners like the National Environment Management Authority who have been taking sample, not NEMA, but I mean Kenya Wildlife Service, who have come taking samples to ascertain the alkalinity, the quality of the water, vis-a-vis the extent at which the water is draining. I saw another question before that what is the role of the community? What is the role of county government in mitigating these things, of which a question which I've already tried to answer in the chat, and I think most of you have seen. I just answered through the chat. But the essence of this one, the role of the county government in responding to these environmental challenges is that we have what we call environmental education center in Lake Bogoria, which we normally use to educate our people, create awareness on how the side effect of these climate change issues and environmental hazards. And also, during our public participation, we normally have public participation as a government to the community. So we normally address such issues as environmental, more especially, that is my docket. So on catchment issues, I normally educate people on the importance of having our catchment conserved and the mitigative measures on how to at least get ourselves out of this scourge. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raphael, for your answers. And I would like also to ask Protus, who was also one of our speakers. Protus, you have worked with One Health teams before. So what are some of the advantages and challenges you observed, and how does it affect multidisciplinary concepts in utilizing it in Africa?
Thank you, Melvin, for that question. So reflecting on my previous experiences working with the One Health teams, one of the advantages I noted is that it is really amazing when you are working with multidisciplinary teams, simply because you realize it is quicker, you can create solutions quicker, and also you also realize that it is more cost effective in that you can be able to do two things. For example, we used to have medical treatment issues, for example, medical camp, and at the same time you are vaccinating dogs on rabies. So you realize that you are using the same saved resources to be able to do the same thing, which is more cost effective. Although, so the challenge becomes in that you realize that with the way these multidisciplinary concepts are, the benefits cannot be seen or cannot be realized quickly. And the way the system is, our politicians, even our local people, need immediate results. So such kind of concepts, it becomes hard to sell them to policymakers, because policymakers will say, this one will take time to realize, and then my people need answers, immediate answers, which means if I take this, they'll not vote me in again. So we need, it is a big challenge with regards to implementation. So we need to look at ways of ensuring that it becomes more appealing. Then another issue I highlighted is the challenge of funding. So you realize that most of multidisciplinary approach projects in Africa are funded by our international partners, which is not a bad thing, but we don't have local funding. So the question that I don't want to go into is about, should we refuse international funding? So that is a global health problem about decolonizing that I don't want to go into. But my perspective is that foreign funding is important, but we need to engage our local governments to see how much they can also support. And lastly, the last thing I noted from working with One Health team is that lack of sustainability. You do a project, once funding is done, nothing continues. So how we can solve this is to ensure that we work with the local communities, in that once the project ends, the community is able to pick up from where you left, or they can be able to use those skills you left for their own benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Protas. So there are a few questions that are put out on chat. I request the panelists to please go there, and actually anyone go to chat and respond to those questions, because that's why we're here for this dialogue. And specifically, Protas, if you can respond to, while we collaborate, how do we, as social scientists, interdisciplinary practitioners, neutralize decision makers who are too focused on money goals and do not see the effects of their decision of global health? So just answer that on chat as best as you're able, and let's have a conversation. I have a question for Chanel. And so based on your work as a behavioral scientist, what have you observed that would crack open a door where communities are intentionally willing to contribute towards positive change and maximally embrace a harmonious balance with the rest of nature, especially given that we really fully do depend on the natural or on nature to survive?
I think so far with the experience that I have gathered, like to fully gauge community participation or involvement, we need to actually involve community from the beginning. So when you look at the projects, most of the projects or research projects that are implemented, they usually just look at people or the communities that they're going to work in as objects. You know what I mean? So all the problem is designed by the so-called experts, and then they come and then just implement it on communities, on local communities. So with that comes a lot of resistance and lack of community participation. So to ensure that actually members of the community participate, there is a need for a bottom-up approach. I think Process did mention that in one of his in his presentation. So we need to move away from that top-up approach, from that top-down approach where we have a so-called a group of experts that design everything and do the budget and then go to a community and implement that. So that brings about a barrier. But then when we work from a bottom-up approach where we involve the community from the beginning of designing the project, then we get more involvement into the community from the community members, and then the project is more likely to be successful. So community participation and involving of the community is very important. And also one of the things that has worked from my experience is when the community actually recognizes themselves that there's a problem in their community. So for instance, in South Africa, when you look at water and sanitation, those facilities are provided by the government. But in some other African countries, these facilities are not provided by the government. So people actually come together, they mobilize themselves, they collect money, and they go on and build their own toilets. And you'll find that in such communities, there's better sustainability. People use the toilets, and you see obviously the benefits of the sanitation and water. Whereas in the other contexts where these are freely provided, there's no ownership from the members of the community. And sometimes you find that some of these resources are actually, vandalism takes place and they have to be locked up at night and so on and so forth. So to ensure that we have full community participation, sustainability, we have to redesign our project and engage in bottom-up research that involves the community from the onset and to the end. And that will also ensure sustainability, that even when the researchers leave the community, members of the community are able to continue, and that results in sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chanel. I have Zoe who has just raised her hand. Can you feel free to ask your question, Rosa? You're on mute. Zoe, you're on mute. Kindly unmute yourself.
Sorry, yes, hello. This is in response to what Chanel just said about the top-down and bottom-up approach. Having done this for like 10 years now, I still feel that there is huge issue with regards to decision makers that want the money. It's always the bottom line of money at the expense of planetary health, no matter what. And I've become quite frustrated with, we're still in this hamster wheel of saying we need to give more power back to the local community. But when you give anything to people that have never had anything, they suddenly become, I don't know, there's a psychological imbalance that happens. And I have seen so many great land-based community projects collapse because of this is mine and this is yours, and you should not be touching my tools, rather than seeing as a shared tools. So again, I think my question to any of the panelists able to hear this is, how do you get decision makers, beneficiaries in whom we empower in our projects to actually see beyond the cash flow and into the long-term value? And maybe this is where youth needs to be engaged further. I don't know, but I would love to hear more about people's perspectives on this, and if they've had the same problem as I have. Thank you.
You're welcome. My final question goes to Iola before we go to the breakout sessions. Do you have any suggestions on how to control or reduce language loss in Africa, for example? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Melvin. So a very important step towards reducing language loss would be, encouraging the younger generations to speak their indigenous languages. So, the family, this starts from the family. The family should always ensure that, when they speak with their children, they communicate using their own native languages and not the dominant language in their countries. And also, new technologies can also be used to preserve spoken languages. Technologies such as podcasts can be used to, preserve spoken languages. So, this is where the youth can also, help in promoting their indigenous languages. They can come up with initiatives and podcasts to discuss topical issues in their communities instead of using dominant languages that they are used to. Also, another way to prevent language loss and preserve native and indigenous languages is creating more awareness about this risk, because it is very important that, in order to preserve our cultural heritage and our identity as Africans, we must preserve our languages. So we should also create more awareness about this using the internet and social media. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iola. So the question that Zoe just asked, I would like to request our panelists, and I will point at you, Prodas, to get us started, and then maybe Piri could come in, or any of the other panelists.
Thank you. So I'll just deal with a bit of it, and then anybody can come in. So you realize it is a challenge because, as she rightly put it, that money becomes a challenge. But maybe as implementers of projects, can we think of other ways rather than money of dealing with, for example, if it is the community leaders, because that's where the challenge comes in. For example, if you partner, I know when you are working with the community, you need the goodwill of the community leaders. So one of the approach from the few projects I've been involved in, and mostly I've been dealing with community engagement. It is always easier when you approach the community. You let them know the likely benefits the community is likely to benefit, because you realize, according to humans' hierarchy of needs, human beings love recognition more than money in really sense. So if you can find a way of explaining to them the benefits they are likely to gain, and also involve them from the start to the end of the project, and capitalize more on providing other benefits rather than the monetary benefits, especially when dealing with local government leaders, the local community leaders, it can be a good way of dealing with the challenge. Although it is a serious issue that I also recognize, so I'll leave it to the other presenters to also weigh in on the issue.
Yeah, Zoe's question is very relevant. It's very difficult issue when you talk about when the issue of money comes in, and you're talking about development and, in this case, conservation issues and health issues. I think it stems right from the beginning. Grace was talking the work that Grace is doing in a community, educating the girl child, focusing on the girl child, and getting them to be on par with their other colleagues, the male colleagues, so that later on in life they will be able to be in a position to make decisions and to control their fate. So I would suggest that, yes, it's a difficult thing to handle, especially if you're going to deal with project-based issues. Like you come with a project, it's 4 or 5 years, and within those 4 or 5 years, you want to see dramatic changes in a community, within a culture. If these things are culture is a cultural-based setup. I don't think you'll be able to see a difference in 4 or 5 years for project-based. But if the issues like for work which Grace is doing, which involves working over the years, educating and bringing and getting people to understand who they are and what they are, and eventually having enough people within the community who are able to be able to direct the processes and issues and aspects of the community development without being selfish. Maybe you'd eventually get there. But it's very difficult to talk about a 4 or 5 year project. And then I think a 4 or 5 year project should have certain objectives. And then the challenge that we face, according to me, is that a number of people come with a project which is 4 or 5 years, and when they say that the project is finished, is over, there could be a gap, or there'll be another project that comes, but it's not related. The link to what was previously done may fall away. The good work that was done by a previous project may fall away, but you need to build upon that, because changing cultures is it's not easy to be done within 4 or 5 years, and changing people's perspectives. That's where the issue which is always spoke about is such a challenge, because our culture, our thinking, how we perceive issues differs. And some other people with such strong personalities, and some of them are strong and selfish, and who always think about themselves and not the greater community or the greater good. I hope I've answered it, but it's a difficult challenge.
Yeah, so thank you for those responses. I have to say that really, we're very, very short on time, and we wanted to do breakout rooms, but we also really value the conversation that's happening here. And so, and I also know that going to breakout rooms sometimes means people go home. So I would urge you to stay and have these discussions with us. I don't know if Zoe, I think you just raised your hand again. I'm not sure if you had put it down, but please come in.
No, I didn't raise it. Thank you. No, okay. Sorry, it was an exit.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I hope that the question was answered at least briefly and okay, in a way that we can continue this conversation. We're now going to go up to breakout rooms. Please stay if you can, gain the courage, and let's have a few more conversations over there, and then we will reconnect. So see you there.
Hello, Nathan. It appears there are few people here who are not in the breakout rooms.
Yeah, I'm trying to juggle, keep everyone connected with someone, and also be sure it's clear what we're supposed to be doing with the time. Maybe if you, Samuel, could just remain here and try and see if anyone has questions, or anyone can also write a message in the chat and I'll try and put you in the room. We're just trying to be sure everyone has a chance to share their own work and connect so that we remain, we accelerate the momentum.
Yeah, that's definitely what we need to do. So basically, perhaps we could just maintain it as it is if this audience would not be going into breakout rooms. How many people did you put per room? 2 or 1 or more?
It ranges between 2 to 6.
Okay.
Right now, there was a lot of variation with some people joined or dropped off.
Okay, that's fine. We'll just take it away from here. Maybe for those who are in here, because I can see it seems some other persons are coming out of their rooms back to this place, maybe for reasons. For example, in the room I was initially, I was having problem with my audio, but it seems it's working just fine here. So maybe I'll just interact with the people we have here, get to know one another, get to know their different disciplines and interests, and see how we can take it away from there. So greetings to everyone once again. I can see Hania here, Hawa, Bashiru, Musa, Andrea Araujo, Odipo, Bia Moraes, Lucimara, Dave Singh, this Herculano, and Luisa, along with Aminas. Would you please just briefly, I'll call upon names, I'll call your names. We just want to interact with one another, get to meet one another, network if possible. So, okay, Nathan, could you please move Amina back into room 1? She says she had network issues and that's why she's out here. And she would appreciate if she could get back into room 1, breakout room 1. But for the rest of us who are here, Hania, could you please give us a brief intro about, a brief intro of yourself, rather? Okay, it seems Hania is not close by. She's not responding. Okay, what if we hear from Hawa? Hawa Adley. Can the rest of you hear me? Because I'm beginning to feel there is no response. Can anyone, if you can hear me, can you please just give me a sign?
Yeah, Samuel, I'm just seeing your message. I'm trying to check in on the breakout room. Some of them only have 2 people, so I'm just wanting to be sure they're having a good experience. Is there something I can help with here in the main room?
Okay, here it seems that I tried calling about 2 persons to just say something about themselves, but I didn't get any response. So I'm beginning to think maybe they cannot hear me. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, sometimes there might be a connection issue where it still shows the screen or the contact, but they may not be able to hear that. So that's my speculation for what might be happening. So maybe just keep trying to see if anyone can hear or communicate. Otherwise, maybe we'll try.
Okay, so let me try this once again. Greetings to everyone. We have about 9 or 10 of us here, excluding Nathan. About 9 of us, with myself 10. So if you can hear me, can you please just say some greetings from your end, whosoever it is who can hear me? Lucimara, Carolina, Herculano, Hawa, whosoever can hear me.
Hello, everyone. We have some people in the breakout rooms. This is the main room. So if you have just joined, feel free to introduce yourself and ask any questions. Samuel is here on behalf of the facilitation team, and we're really just trying to be sure everyone has an opportunity to connect and share ideas. So please feel free if you have any questions, come in.
Hello, Raphael, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Good.
Yes, I can.
That's encouraging. It looks like almost every other person cannot hear me. I've been calling people's name, no response from all of them. There are quite a number of people in this place, but I'm not getting response from almost anyone. So
Oh yeah, I'm okay. I'm getting you.
it's good to know you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I can see Doha is here, Natalia, Susan, any other person. Can you please just say a greeting from your end if you can hear me, other than Raphael and Nathan? I just want to see how many persons can actually hear me. Pamela, Elisa, Lucimara, Clayton, anyone?
Hello, Samuel.
Yeah, greetings to you.
I can listen to you.
Okay, thank you, Natalia. Thank you very much. Actually, we are in breakout rooms, and the purpose of the breakout rooms is supposed to be for us to connect with one another, just get to interact, discuss subject matters as it affects us individually, to know what each person is doing. For example, for myself, I'm a public health epidemiologist. I'm taking my master's in public health at the Cyprus Institute of Environment and Public Health. And I'm also a planetary health enthusiast. I intend with time to go into environmental and occupational health. And specifically for Africa, I look towards working in the industrially contaminated sites section of the public health sector, because I realize that in Africa, there are so many industrially contaminated sites that are not being monitored, and the right processes to actually cover the waste disposal system is not in place. So that's my inclination, that's my interest. I'm also interested in maternal and child health, especially as it would help to reduce the trends of neonatal disorders in Africa. And so I'd like to hear from others, whatsoever you do, whatsoever interests you, wherever you are, what you're into, what you intend to do in future. I'd like to hear from you. So if you can hear me, just indicate, go ahead, do a brief introduction of yourself and what you're into. Did anyone hear me at all?
We just joined from another breakout room, so not really, yeah.
Oh, it's good to know at least someone could hear. Greetings to you, Charles.
Say again?
I said greetings to you, Charles.
Oh, no problem. Yeah.
How are you doing today?
Very good, thank you. And you?
I'm doing fine. Where are you at?
Currently, I'm in Canada, but I'm from Mexico.
Oh, from Mexico. Beautiful. Yes. It's nice having you here with us.
It's
how was the
lovely to hear everyone? It's lovely to hear everyone's perspective and contributions. It's been amazing.
Thank you very much. So can any other person hear us other than just myself and Charles? Can anyone also hear us?
Hi, yes, I can hear you. This is Shirley.
Greetings to you, Shirley. It's nice to see your
You
face.
too.
How are you
You
doing?
too. I am well. Yes, I'm actually in New York City. Originally from Colombia.
Okay.
So, yes.
That's beautiful. Thank you. So Charles, what do you do? What field are you in? Is it health? Is it sciences or out of it?
Yeah, it's population health. And yeah, currently I'm working in a health promotion initiative using nature-based interventions to promote immigrants and refugees' mental and physical health in the city. So working with local communities and institutions and bringing back earth and nature to the equation.
That's a beautiful take. Very beautiful. I have a friend who is also into health education as one subsect of public health, and her interest very much aligns with what you're doing, looking towards immigrants and the marginalized communities as it affects their mental health, because she believes that the basis of general health is psychological health. If people are healthy up there, they can always put themselves in good health conditions. That's first. So it's a beautiful one. Nice to know that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. How about you, Shelley? What's your own scope?
Let's see. So for the past 12 years, I've been in the HIV prevention field. And the past about 4 years, I've, from what I've learned within the HIV field, led me to pursue more of gender equity work. And yes, my interest also has been in WASH, so water and sanitation, hygiene. So now, and I love this. To me, the planetary health is this new concept, which is really not new, but it's bringing everything together that we're all discussing and how they're syndemically affect one another. So this has been, well, you were asking about my background, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that as well, that I'm just really happy to be here.
Thank you very much.
Be able to join. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I looked into HIV last year, and from my findings, the burden of HIV is very high in Africa and disproportionately affects the women more than the men. And so
exactly,
there's more women with that they're more at risk. The at-risk population are predominantly women and more of the substance users and sex workers and all. And so it's a great one. I also hope in future, as fate would permit me, to do a bit of some awareness campaign in remote rural areas of Africa where they do not have access to whether it's pre-exposure prophylaxis or post-exposure prophylaxis in Africa. So it's great work you're doing there. Thank you very much. Also, it's a beautiful one. It's great having more and more people beginning to understand the concept of planetary health and that everything we do actually in one way or the other impacts the planet either positively or negatively. So it's nice to have you with us. Welcome once again. Any other person willing to share something about what? Any other person? Just a little bit before we wrap up the breakout room sessions. Just a bit of what you do or what you could be interested in doing.
Hello.
Oh, greetings to you, Diana.
Yes. Okay. My background, in my undergraduate, I pursued environmental science, and for my master's, I'm taking an MSc in environmental health. Yes, I think that's so basically I've been in this environment since my graduation, so I'm well familiar with it. And I'm also an enthusiast of planetary health, and I'm looking forward to doing much for the environment. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Diana. It's nice. Environmental health, beautiful. It's the encapsulation of planetary health. It's humans as part of the environment and the environment as part of we being humans. And so welcome to every other person coming in. I see the breakout room sessions are beginning to come to a close, and we're having more and more people here. I also want to believe that the breakout room sessions were interactive and interesting, and you got to meet one or two persons. I personally here, I was in the main room because my breakout room session didn't initially go very well. But in the main room here, I was able to meet with Charles, who is Mexican, and also with Shirley, who is from Colombia, but in New York. And both of them very much deep in the public health system, but in different scopes. One is working with HIV and HIV-related awareness campaigns, while the other, that's Charles, is the other person. Charles is doing something a little bit different from that. So it's nice to have everyone here. We do not have much time on our hands again. We are already at the climax of this Planetary Health Alliance meeting, the side events of the ACOPPHE, the African Community of Planetary Health Partners for Health and Environment. But as we move to the close, I just want to say something in case I do not have the opportunity to say that again. This has been, for us, a pilot program just to see how we could bring people together to share their different perspectives and opinions and the different things, the realities in their own environment. But going into the future, we at ACOPPHE will be trying to create more and more of these avenues. We'll be creating more programs like this, and it would be a little bit more robust because we would give panelists the opportunity to go deeper into their discussions, and then we'll have the audience give the audience the opportunity to ask more and more questions. We could have maybe just one or two panelists over the span of some 30, 40 minutes, and so they can discuss more in details. But it's been great so far having you all. Like I said, it was a pilot program. We do understand that 2 hours or just about 2 hours and 15 minutes would not be enough to cover the different topics that have been treated. And it also would not have been enough to attend to all the questions that have been asked. But if you're interested in connecting with us, if you have questions, if you want to also contribute in your own way, whether you're in Africa or outside Africa, to creating and increasing the awareness of planetary health, eco-health, One Health, and all health concepts in Africa, kindly send a mail to acoppphe@gmail.com as it's reflected on the screen, or use the link and join our WhatsApp group. We'll be more than interested and would oblige you in answering all your questions and keeping you in the fray. So like I said, in future, perhaps once again this year, before the year runs out, we're going to have a big call it big, a very big forum, maybe a retreat. I don't know what it will be called, an annual program or whatsoever from ACOPPHE. So it's been great meeting with each and every one of you. I'll be giving it over now to Nightingale to take it away from me now.
Thank you, Samuel. And thank you everybody for staying. And I have to give credit to those who stayed to go to breakout rooms, because like we know, breakout rooms, like I had mentioned, are sometimes people want to go away because of the one-on-one sometimes. So thank you so much. As we get to close, I do want to give a small shout out to Susan Prescott, who's here. And based on my research of planetary health, Susan Prescott started that conversation quite a while back. And so being a woman in this conversation is also important, like we heard from the Maasai lady, Grace. Another reason why I really appreciate Susan is being a mother of a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. My children have had space to collaborate there and to give their voice there. We had great conversations. In my group, Mary from Zambia, who's doing a collaborative between the UK and Zambia universities, where the students learn from each other and the lecturers learn from each other, also brought up a very great conversation. I'm sure we had all these conversations that we can hopefully continue to have. So I really just want to say, I want to invite one person out of the audience to close us off and to give a thank you, or to even leave us with a question. So please feel welcome. Whoever speaks first keeps the mic.
Nightingale, perhaps we choose maybe Pearl, and also Pearl, if she's here, so that she can say something.
Hello, Melvin. Do you mean me?
Yes, I mean you.
So, hi everyone. So, thank you so much for this awesome, session. I think it's really a fantastic way to start the annual meeting, because this is the very first session. So I learned a lot, and there were a lot of topics that were an eye opener for me. So thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate this session.
Thank you very much. So I also want to give a shout out to Nathan Yutman, who has done the tech for us. And Nathan, if you can give one last word of thank you to the team, or any word that you would like to share and close for us.
Well, thank you, Nightingale, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to connect. This was in many ways a dream come true for us. We've put in a lot of work. We are all volunteers from different parts of Africa, from different parts of the world. And what we hope is that this is a seed that is planted inside of us individually and collectively, and that this is just the beginning, and that we'll continue sharing ideas and solutions, because truly the children in Africa, the children around the world, the endangered species, the impoverished populations, they need us to connect and to have this hope that comes from connecting with other people who deeply care and are committed to being a part of the change that we need to see in the world. So just want to echo again that we really would like anyone who has appreciated anything here, feel free to reach out with any questions, ACOPPHE@gmail.com. You can email that, the planetarypartners.org website. We'll have that up and running soon. The easiest is probably short term, the WhatsApp group. We've shared multiple times in the chat, and it's on the screen, and really want to have this community connect to other communities that are doing amazing work, because that humility, that collaboration, that's what we need to be able to heal the broken relationships. And again, thanks everyone. And there's the main session for the Planetary Health Alliance meeting that begins in several minutes, and that's available on the main program, the main conference site. So we invite everyone to join that if you're able, and otherwise we are excited to connect with you during this amazing week and look forward to staying connected. Thank you again, everyone.
So I think that is it. And we will meet you guys in the other sessions and in our other events moving forward. May you all have a great day, a great morning, a great evening, a great whatever it is, wherever you are.
Thank you.
And we're not kicking anyone out. If you have something you'd like to share, any questions, we'll still keep this room open until the last person leaves.
Nathan, can we have that African song from Melvin play again in the background rather than just have it all silent like this? So we can just have that playing in the background while people exit at will.
Or we could also see if anybody has a question, because I know people are moving out slowly, or even a comment before we listen to the song. I know, like in my group, Chanel, I cut off Chanel. She had a few more things to add because we were talking about collaboration and how to include the communities, how to have community buy-in and community ownership. So just saying, we can listen to the song, and we can also, before the song, we can hear if anybody has anything. Iola is one of the youngest people we have in this group, and I hope that's not offensive, Iola. So you may also have some insight for the other folks who've been around for a while.
And just as people exit, one last thing, we'll try as much as possible to keep the presentations in maybe a Google Doc or in a file that will be accessible by the majority, to be an open access file. And so we would also share that link in the chat or in the WhatsApp room, so everyone can have access to the presentation slides, the pre-recorded sessions for reference purpose, as well as the chat.
The singing sounds. The Maasai people proudly welcomed us and performed different dances. Dances are a big part of Maasai tradition. They actually perform their jumping dance known as adumu. Men enter the center and began to jump, heels never touching the ground, straight into the air as high as they can go. It's a sort of mating dance, a way of a young Maasai man who has just become a warrior to demonstrate his strength and attract a bride. We also joined the dance and demonstrated togetherness and unity as Africans. After dancing with the Maasai Moran, the Maasai women happily gathered together and sang their cultural and welcoming songs for us.
They repeated phrases following each verse and sang on a descending scale in responding to their own verses. The singing was accompanied by neck movements. When breathing out, the head is leaned forward, while when breathing in, the head is again tilted back. We really enjoyed these dancing moves and joined them happily and sang together in unity. After dancing and embracing the Maasai culture, it was time for the student community from Moi University to perform their dance to the Maasai community. This modern dance was choreographed by Joseph Akite, who is currently the 2021 Planetary Health Campus Ambassador.
Through the barn, and some have lost a lot, riding off the land they own, their own animals they have shot. And what's that on the horizon? There's a ray.
This dance communicates about the effects of droughts and forest fires, and droughts can create ideal conditions for wildfires. Lack of rain and low humidity dry out.
For your little ones, and the promises they keep. Let it rain.
So that's what we had, and there's so much where that came from. And again, feel free to trickle away, but if you have a burning thing to say, please stay and say it. But thank you so much. It's been a beautiful event. And again, Melvin, thank you so much for sharing that very beautiful music. And there will be an event specific to where that music came from. And Melvin, you could do a quick mention of when that event will be or where it can be found.
Thank you, Nightingale. Actually, that was a festival event for us from the Eastern African Planetary Health Hub. And it has already been posted on the YouTube channel of the PHA. So if you want to watch more of it, you can quickly go there. At the same time, maybe I can share the link here. But the event itself will be on 30th, the last day of our farm event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. So you can reach us on WhatsApp, and our website will be coming up soon. So we look forward to seeing you guys there. We will stay here until the last person leaves, so a conversation can be had. Otherwise, goodbye to all, and thank you, thank you, thank you.
And maybe if anyone who is new or has connected with us for the first time today, if you have ideas, it's a real challenge to stay connected and to build something from the bottom up, even though that's so important. So really to not say we have the answers alone, but we can come with them together. And we would like to learn from anyone who's new or has ideas about uniting across Africa, between Africa and the rest of the world, across different disciplines, ways to partner with communities. We really are trying our best to consider those questions, but it's an ongoing discussion, and it's everyone who needs to be a part of that. So we invite you to connect in our space, and if you think that anything that we've said or done could help groups or projects that you're a part of, we're all about collaboration, like we said, and we hope to just have this be the beginning.
I would just like to say that we had a very successful session. You know, I think it turned out more than I had actually expected. Just, I know at some point I checked, we had about 70 people, or, you know, right about that, which is really great. And the discussions were great. And it's also a platform where I'm learning a lot. And also thank you to everyone for giving me the opportunity to actually share something that is something that I'm very passionate about. And yeah, so I'm really happy to be part of this, to have been part of this event. And I'm glad to see so many people staying till the end. We still have people in the group. So yeah, this really just goes to say this was really an amazing, amazing time that we shared and learned from each other. That's all I just wanted to say. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for the support.
Thank you so much, Chanel. I will leave the floor open again, but I did want to just check if, Francis, you have something that you would like to share with us. I did see you posted something and thought you might want to add a little bit. No pressure, just wanted to see if you had something to share. Okay, so the floor remains open as we exit.
Okay, I'm happy to have been able to be present today. I'm so happy because whatever I'm doing is for the future generation, so that we can have many graces, not one, from my community. I would love to see many Maasai girls in forums like these ones, and there's no way they can go there unless they get an education. So I'm so pleased and so inspired to continue doing what I'm doing, so that we can have many people like the people here, girls who have gone to university level, who can speak on behalf of other girls and women and bring change to the society. I'm so pleased to be here. I beg to leave. Hope to join any other time there is a meeting and a shared programs. Thank you.
Hi, I'm glad to be here too. It's the first time I attend to Planetary Health conference, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to know more about the African situation, health and cultural and social issues. Africa, that is a continent that is often not so much mentioned on our mainstream media in the West, in South America, but that had so much contribution, cultural contribution to the countries of South and Latin America. It's part of our heritage. And something that called me attention was the presentation of Iola, when he talked about preservation of languages and as a way of not only communication. I would say that language is language and each writing system encloses a way of thinking and also cosmovision, word vision, that I would say that similarly to DNA, genetic codes, has its diversity of visions that's so important, I think more than ever in this century, since we are facing challenges that are growing in importance and difficulties. I should say we should fight to maintain it, this cultural diversity, because we would depend much upon this to cope with the challenges that we face now and will probably face in the future. Just this. Well, bye-bye. And thank you.
Thank you, Ivan, for that share. I totally agree with what you said, but I do want to take a backseat in case somebody would like to respond.
Thank you so much, Ivan, for sharing your thoughts. Well, I would say as a young individual, have been so much inspired by education and its importance in changing the community to the way we want, to a positive way. And every time I share with friends, I share with colleagues that it's very important that we take out important aspects of our education. We change it from just academic discourse into the community, just as some other panelists has mentioned there, that we really have to emphasize the importance of community engagement, community participation, and community involvement in all of these academic and research endeavors that we've been talking about, that we've discovered over time. And this is what I've realized, that we have answers to these problems, but we do not translate it effectively to our community. And as a young individual, I believe that the youth hold such power to be able to translate this knowledge into action, in our respective communities. And I want to encourage all youths, all young people at different parts of the world to be an agent of change, an agent of positivity, an agent of hope, in their respective communities. And they should ensure that they don't just learn, they just don't absorb what they learn, but also use it to inspire the change they want in their respective communities. Thank you.
So I think with that, I will say thank you to everybody. I will also give one last chance to whoever may want to share something, and then we will close. Looking forward to the next sessions that we will have, so stay tuned. And thank you so much for being there. So a little moment for whoever would like to share, and otherwise we will call the meeting closed. Thank you again to everyone. So I think at this juncture, I do say thank you very much. Thank you, Bernice, for your thank you. We look forward to connecting into the future. So I think, Nathan, please feel free to log us off now. May you all be well.
Thanks again, everyone. Look forward to connecting, learning, and growing together.